So welcome back, everybody, for the last presentation of the day and for last presentation of the 2023 graduating class. And it's my pleasure to introduce our student, Stephen Montecucco. And his presentation is entitled Multidimensionalism, a journey through my worldview and creative process. I would like to acknowledge our guest and panelist, Holly Ailwell. Thank you for being with us. And the advisor, Chase Morin. And of course, our great artistic director, Danilo Perez. And Stephen, we are ready whenever you are. You're muted.
Am I unmuted? Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me. This is my presentation. It's entitled Multidimensionalism, a Journey Through My Worldview and Creative Process. Most of the presentation is a video, so I will play that now. Just a heads up is that we're having some technical difficulties where the audio is very soft, so I'm going to turn off my mic and turn it all the way up, but if you can crank the volume on your end so you can hear the things that I'd say, that will be wonderful. I don't want to conform to any societal expectation. In the fall of 2021, I found myself undergoing major shifts in my understandings of myself, of the world, and of music. For the first time, I began to relate to music as something that is inherently magical. I also began to relate to magic as a framework of understanding the mysterious connections between the self and the universe as a whole. Magic is a word with an elusive definition, and while there have been many different cultural perspectives over time, nearly every society in human history has understood music to possess an inherently spiritual dimension. Music directly interfaces with realms like emotion and soul that can be difficult to understand through traditional frameworks. As these new understandings began to blossom, I reflected on my experience with education, especially in childhood. As a kid, I was filled with boundless enthusiasm and a love for learning. My excitement and focus naturally progressed in a very fast-paced and non-linear fashion, and while this nourished my fascination and encouraged rapid development, it didn't conform to the narrow standards of our educational institutions. My attention leaps around from topic to place to song, maintaining multiple threads of inspiration. I'll hyperfixate on one thing for hours, then rapidly bounce between 7 interests and activities over 15 minutes. And so I embarked on a journey of trying to understand and embrace my own unique natural patterns of inspiration and creativity. I needed to imagine and create my own multidimensional ways of living that uplift my spirit. I don't want to conform to any societal expectations or conceptions that hold me back from realizing the power and beauty that live within my own unique identity and perspective. I became very passionate about the idea that if we could all learn to embrace our own unique intuitive process, our expression would become more of an honest outpouring of our internal world. This, in turn, would unlock a magical potential within our creation to have a greater impact on our communities, as it would be grounded in our own lived experience of real-world issues.
We just try to keep breathing.
For me, this looked like radically adopting a process over product approach. This meant that I allowed myself to pursue a lot of different projects at once, and rather than hyper-focusing on the outcome of any individual project, I just focused on staying authentically expressive no matter what I was doing, and then it was just a matter of documenting the results. Through this, I was able to create way more than I ever had in the past.
Well, give me back my old boat, said I won't sail if she will float, and I got them deep river blues. Say I'm going back, muscle shows, times are better, there I'm told, and I got them.
First, they came from my reflection. Gave word I was bare, famous for it. Intimacy compromised, and days go by. No need. Thanks to the inspiration and framework that the Global Jazz Institute provided, I decided to be as ambitious as I possibly could. I wanted to imagine and manifest as if there were no barriers between where I am right now and achieving all of my biggest dreams. As Wayne Shorter said, I wanted to create art for the world that I wish existed. So I started thinking on multiple timescales. I started creating both for the now and for the 5 years from now and for the 30 years from now, and allowing it all to happen non-linear, one at a time, in its own different order, without requiring any of it to come together under a specific framework, but having blind faith that it would emerge to weave together under one message.
Build on the science guy. Build on the science guy. Build on the science guy.
Science rules.
Build on the science guy.
Inertia is a property of matter.
Build on the science guy.
T minus 7 seconds.
You ready? 3, 2, 1.
One, two, three, four. Listen to the trees. Can't you hear the leaves are singing? Songs of moss and long lost lovers whispered to a bee, searching high and low for something that's worth bringing.
How do you create music together without talking about it or saying anything? You know, to follow the sound, to breathe together, to harmonize and create things from thin air. Okay? That to me is some of the most magical moments that you actually experience.
I can't live a life running for my life. I will always want you.
You see entertainment, where I see a space.
As my journey of imagination and creation continued to develop, I started to have specific ideas around structures and workflows that would enable myself and other like-minded artists to create and live in a more empowered and inspired way, while increasing our ability to have an impact on the communities around us. I envision a traveling team of creatives who act as artists, educators, and researchers. They would travel from town to town, creating music, working with students, connecting with local researchers and artists, and all the while creating inspiration wherever they go. An initiative like this could take the transformative experiences that are created in places like the Global Jazz, Jazz and Gender Justice, and Effortless Mastery Institutes and bring them on the road, opening the door to many students who never before would have had access, we can also conduct valuable research into the potential for new approaches to music education that could empower our students and support our schools. Our educational approach should be informed by observing patterns in natural environments and trying to understand how the interconnections between different parts can constitute a thriving whole. We would also look at what is working in current educational systems, as well as assessing where they are falling short. No matter what, we would always prioritize uplifting the creative uniqueness of each individual.
River blue.
This organization would also provide a blueprint for an alternative from the current toxic touring norms in the music industry. Artists would have time to actually connect to the communities that they visit, create new works, and most importantly, they would have access to a workflow that prioritizes their lifestyle and well-being while aligning their career with their values.
So then my mind fell under their scrutiny. Expression is my communication. It is beyond my control how they receive messages. Diva runneth the commercialism.
I had the opportunity to put my educational ideas to the test earlier this summer when I did 2 weeks of workshops at the Boston Arts Academy. I was working with a group of freshmen and a group of sophomores on alternating days. We started by playing an improv game that I learned from John Patitucci, in which we all just play a simple loop and wait until we hear something that we think is additive, and then we add it in layer by layer as it evolves. Given the freedom to explore their musical ideas, the students flourished. They patiently listened before adding in layer by layer until all the parts formed a complex, interlocking whole. Then, I helped guide them to add some harmonic motion and create a form out of the melodies and rhythms they had suggested, until, in under an hour, we had collectively written a whole song. What really blew me away is what happened the next day. I came in and ran the same exercise with the second group, and they did a great job. And at the end of class, I walked across the hall to check in and see if the first group had been rehearsing the song they had written previously. Instead, without me asking, they had ran the whole exercise again on their own and written a whole second song. The second group did the same thing the following day, so they ended up writing 4 songs in 1 week.
it's exciting to see now with a lot of people graduating these last 13 years, going out and, having that vision for a real global network of musicians and arts and ideas, and spreading that message that music is a healing force.
The me of it. Say my take and sound is anthemic. I was predisposed for transformation. They crave potent sexual symbolism, while I discovered my cultural whale for freedom, for that girlhood.
Wow. Don't forget our bet, Ralphie. Forget it? I'm about to win it. Step back, everyone. I command you, Ralphie Butt. Make me a sandwich.
This journey of seeing music as magic and learning to embrace my intuitive patterns culminated with the development of a system of 15 symbols and a way of thinking that I call multidimensionalism. Inspired by intersectionality, systems thinking, and theories of critical consciousness, multidimensionalism is a way of seeing everything in the world as being inherently interconnected and multidimensional. There are 4 initial symbols that, when combined, create 15 different permutations, each representing an archetypal concept. They've been gateways for me into some fascinating conversation and new ways of looking at the world. They're also very useful in representing concepts and complex theories like music.
Disapprove of my recasting. I dare you. This is the meat of it. Say my take and sound is anthemic. I was predisposed for transformation.
The first of the 4 fundamental concepts is nothing. This represents true non-existence. This is a foundational concept of reality, as all things lack true substance, just as if we zoom in on an atom, we find pretty much only empty space. However, if we go out into the farthest reaches of interstellar space, we still find this sort of fizzling energy. And in that way, nothing doesn't actually exist in the real world. We can't observe it. In music, this represents the idea of silence. All of music relies on silence in order to exist. The second fundamental concept is everything. This represents all things that are possible in infinite energy, possibility, and complexity. Just like nothing, we can't actually observe it or find it in the real world, and yet an atom is full of nearly infinite energy, and space and time seem to go on forever. In music, this represents sound as an archetype.
All you ever did was rock me.
The third fundamental concept is one. This represents the underlying unity of all things, and the fact that while nothing and everything appear to be opposites, they're actually one and the same. All things appear in an infinite variety of forms, but they're all interconnected expressions of the one true nature. In music, this represents a note as a sound within silence. If we understand 0 to be at one pole and infinity to be at the other, then 1 is the point where they intersect. And once we have established that, then we have the space between 0 and 1, and the space between 1 and infinity. And along that continuum is where all other things emerge. And that brings us to our last symbol.
Homosexual symbolism.
Nodding my head like yeah, moving my hips like yeah. Hands up, they playing my song. They know it's gonna be okay. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's a party in the USA.
The final fundamental symbol is continuum. This represents the spectrum between nothing, one, and everything. All things that exist emerge somewhere between those absolutes. In music, we can think of this to represent rhythm and melody, as those are emergent patterns that appear between the relationships of silence and sound. My time in the Global Jazz Institute has changed my life forever. I've been constantly surrounded by peers and mentors who inspire me endlessly. I've learned new ways to create freely and without fear. My understandings of myself and the universe have been busted wide open and reknit together, and I will never be the same. I believe that when we treat music as a magical force, and when we unite in collective artistic action, we open the door to new powerful worldviews that enable us to create in a more inspired and empowered way, while imbuing our creations with the power to cause positive change in ourselves, in our communities, and in the world.
Thank you. So that marks the conclusion of my primary presentation. Now I just wanted to talk a little bit about the music and the process, and also give acknowledgements. So during this process, my goal was to create as much content as possible in order to weave it together into one sort of abstract multidimensional piece at the end of the year. So I ended up, my goal was 10 albums. I ended up recording 7. Including one called a Multidimensionalist, which is solo duo improvisations inspired by tetrachords and the symbols that were featured in the video. The Arcade Curriculum, which is improv games and pieces that are built in a way where the professionals that are recording it are recording games that could also be introduced to students with little to no musical experience. Cyrus, which is slightly AI influenced, exploring different AI tools and to create music in improvised and zero gravity versions of Miley Cyrus songs, as well as a few other pop songs. Envious, which was a non-binary jazz instrumental group celebrating queer issues. Songs About Little Animals, which was an improvised album with lyrics all about little animals. And you heard one track in there that was featuring my grandma's dog, Rascal, who loves to sing whenever we play. Spider Lily, which is a quartet featuring Nika Ko, Julian Miltenberger, and Devin Gates, and The New Message, which was American roots music with my own twists. So introducing some other concepts, like asking old time musicians to improvise in certain ways, and kind of exploring the merging of those concepts, as well as tracing some of my musical roots with old time music and American roots music. A few other things that have been emerging out of this process is a sort of institute initiative hybrid thing that I'm working on starting right now that I've been calling Aircade, or the Artificial Intelligence Research Collective for Arts, Design, and Education, as well as the FAM, or the Foundation for the Advancement of Multidimensionalism, which would work together to create educational outreach and research in a collective environment for musicians around the world, to try and create better designs for music education and better workflow and lifestyle for artists and educators. I have 3 upcoming websites exploring this work. My personal website, which will be Montcuc.co. We have aircade.org and multidimensionalism.org. The global influence was, I don't know, all over this. You know, global has, as I said in the video, changed my life forever and had such a huge musical influence on me. It's hard to even know where to stop. These last 5 years involved with this program have been absolutely incredible and changed everything about my life and my music forever. I did zero gravity interpretations of well-known songs in Cyrus. We embracing folk lineages and exploring their interconnections to jazz in the new message. I did tetrachordial composition and improvisation in a multidimensionalist. We did claves and odd time signatures both on Cyrus and Embius. I had a musical collage to explore identity in this video thesis. It was very inspired by the collage assignment we did in Danilo's workshops. And also there's zero gravity exploration across most of the albums. The little themes and tactics. So that video was basically a multimedia mosaic mind map of sorts. So I was taking all the content that I was collecting over the last year and a half or so between videos, audio, notes in my notebook, the concepts, the structures that I've been working on, and trying to find a way to weave it all into one consistent narrative. But the narrative, the primary function of the narrative was to represent my way of thinking and to sort of show the power that I find in embracing the sort of scattershot nature that my mind will often take, not viewing it as a disorder, but really embracing it as an empowered way to see the world and approach creation. The symbolic story outline. So the story of the narrative really grew out of the symbols. It was 15 symbols, and I was taking each one of them had the exact same amount of time. Which was all based on these numeric patterns, combinations of 777 in different ways. And the first song you heard was called 777, and it was an improv game around meditation, but kind of playing with numeric patterns, because that's something that relates to magic to me, is experimenting with these different things. So there was also a slow motion abaquois the entire video. The ratios of when there was silence and when there was sound was basically a really slowed down abaquois. So that's why there were some periods where there was silence and I was talking, and there's other periods that were music that were playing. That was an abaquois rhythm, which is also the same relationships as a major scale that was playing throughout the whole video. In extremely slow motion, obviously. And yes, embracing neurodivergence was a really important part of this, and letting go of the idea of making myself wrong for the way that my brain works, and trying to embrace those elements of what I do. Also, neurodivergence, there are very many different types of ways that can work for different people. By definition, it's basically the idea that every single person has a different mind that works in a unique way, and we can put people into categories, but really everyone's approach is unique. So I don't mean to make any statements about anyone other than myself in this process. Personnel, I don't have time to read through all this, but I was so grateful to have some of my favorite musicians record. Huge thanks to Val Gentil, Bruce Molsky, and all of my classmates, everyone else who contributed to this project. It was really phenomenal. Again, thanks to my committee, Terry Lynn Carrington and Hallie Elwell, my advisor, Chase Morin, the global team of Danilo Perez, who has changed my life, Marco Pignataro, Patricia Zarate Perez, the whole rest of the team, the staff. Additionally, Asia Burrell Wood, Chris Davis, Val Gentil, Bruce Molsky, everyone else on this wonderful list who contributed ideas. Also, thanks to Eli Utter and my partner, Ainsley Cromar, whose support was invaluable along this process. And yeah, my master's cohort, y'all are the most inspiring people in the world to me. And I've been never been so lucky in my life to be a part of this community. So thank you, everyone.
Very creative work, Stephen. Congratulations. And we're super out of time, so I'm gonna immediately move to the next part of your presentation, which is the question and comments. And as per tradition, we start with your panelists. And it's such a pleasure to have you, Holly, here with us. And so in this part, you can ask Stephen any questions that you have regarding his presentation, or any comment that you want to share with us.
Well, congratulations, Stephen.
Thank you.
In talking with you about all of this. It's a lot. It's a lot, but it's the reality that we're all intaking and doing a lot all the time. And I thought that was actually a really beautiful representation of the human mind and how much goes on at any given time with creative inspiration and introspection. I think as far as what made you, I'm curious, what made you, was the plan always to do the video, or did something along the way shift for you in the way that you wanted to convey and put all these pieces together?
I actually wanted to do a video from the start. I started collecting video material before I even got to started the master's program. I thought that would be a interesting multimedia approach to show off the music. And also sometimes if I'm left to my own devices when speaking, I can get pulled into tangents and stuff. So I figured having just everything all set would kind of help in that regard. And also it was, I've wanted to do filmmaking my whole life and have never had the chance to explore it. I've been around a lot of people who are doing great work in that realm, but I had never done any film or visual media myself. So this was kind of a plunge to force myself to kind of dive into the filmmaking realm in my own very inexperienced way. The video editing was a challenge to learn how to do and everything. But yeah, I really wanted to, I thought this would be a good way to kind of explore the concepts.
All right, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. And okay, next question is or comment from your advisor, Chase Moore.
Stephen, you made it. Congratulations. I've seen it from the very get-go. Actually, we met, what was it, probably 4 years ago now, something like that. So I've seen just an incredible journey from you. It's really been amazing to see you embrace your insane process that most people would be very daunting to try to deal with, all like these multifaceted different approaches to life and creativity that you're trying to embark upon. So I want to congratulate you on everything you've been doing, and really creative video that you created. And I'm just going to dig in a little bit because I know and love you, and just want to reinforce some of the comments I made yesterday to you that you kind of addressed, but could go much deeper into, I think, to really help clarify the focus of this video. I think at the end, when you kind of said that idea of the mind map, right? Multidimensional mind map, I think you said. I think probably a lot of people who are watching this presentation are like, aha, I see kind of what you were trying to get at a little bit more. And I think that sooner in the video, which I think you tried to do, I think you said like one sentence, that would really help clarify things a lot. You know, I think you can bring us even more into your mind with the video through what you say, and trying to be explicit about how you're a trumpeter, you're an educator, you're a poet, you're a videographer, you're an entrepreneur, you're a student, you're a symbologist, you're a philosopher, you're a diary writer, you're creating 7 albums. And this is how your mind naturally works, jumping between these things like this, second to second to second. So one time you're a student in a master class with John Patitucci, and then all of a sudden you're thinking about your childhood TV shows that you watched, and then suddenly you're thinking about your future business plans with your entrepreneurial pursuits. So if you can get us more into what that's like. I think the video did a great job demonstrating that. But just from the very beginning saying, hey, I'm going to open this window and this is what it's like to be in my mind, I think that would really help clarify the video even more. So please, I encourage you to pursue that. And then also, I think it's still a little bit long. I think the video, like to me, the ending of it starts to lose a little bit of focus. And if you kept that in mind, that really the focus is to give us a sense of what it's like to be in your world, I think then you would find places where, you know, maybe, I know that you have that structure in mind with the sevens and stuff. Maybe you could keep that if you found a different narrative path towards the end, or maybe you abandon that a little bit just for the sake of flow and really keeping us in focus with the concepts. So those are my main two comments. I really encourage you to think about those things because, you know, I think this is really brilliant work. I think there's so much potential, and I really love the direction you're taking and trying to, one, bring us into a very personal journey, but also everything that you're doing is amazing work too. And there's so many different facets of what you're doing. So highlighting those two and how they're interconnected and how really the only way this work could have come about is through your own unique brain and your own way of viewing the world and showing us, that's the message that you're trying to give us here. I think that would really elevate your project and this video and how you might present it in the future. So anyways, a few things to think about. And man, I just can't wait to see what you do in the future, the kind of work. Did you want to talk a little bit about your future plans with this project and what you kind of imagine doing in the next 5-10 years?
Yes. Well, to start off a brand new chapter, I'm actually in about 6 or 7 hours moving to East Asia. I fly out to Vietnam in a couple hours, and then I'll be living in Thailand for a while, where I'm continuing this work with this hybrid institute. And so I'm working on a performance series and educational clinics in that area, connecting with some people at the Berklee Global Initiatives, as well as some graduates of the Berklee Jazz Institute and people who are doing great work over there. So educational outreach and performance series and some new creation over there. So that's what is in the immediate future. But I really hope that in the long run to generate research and academic kind of progress around music education and using music education, bringing some of the concepts that we get to experience here at Global and in Jazz and Gender Justice and at Berklee in general, finding a way to package that and bring it out to high schools that have some obsolete approaches and find ways that we can really improve upon arts and music programs to support student mental health and things in that realm is kind of what I hope to explore in the future.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen. I can't wait to hear about the next new chapter, and thank you.
Thank you, Chase, for everything.
Thank you, Chase. And Stephen, let me have a little space to gather my thought about what I just saw. I hope I could see this at least 3-4 times before I have to speak about, because there's so much, it's so fully packed. But before I even say anything, I have a question that I want to ask you. And it's a personal question. There's no there's no wrong answer, but I'm very interested, like at this point in your life, right after you're graduating, after all these years we've been together, what is in your mind, what is the purpose of art for you, for Stephen Montecucco?
For me, it's about an outpouring of an internal world view. It's about finding ways of taking these sort of abstract things that are so much of a huge portion of what it is to be alive, but are very difficult to talk about, and finding ways to not only put them out into the world, but to connect with other people over them. And through that process, we create common ground, we further common messages, and we create space to like build a sort of world for ourselves in a future in which like we can all be all of these internal elements that oftentimes can be like crushed down by the world can actually be uplifted and celebrated. So for me, it's a vehicle and a tool to create positive change in the world and to find expression and identity and cultural connection.
Well, I actually love what you're saying. And here where I find a little bit of kind of like a disconnection with what I saw. But let me start. Let's do a PIN. Let me start for what I was really blown away. First of all, you know, I mean, I know I've been having so much content that I'm fully aware about how brilliant you are, not just as a musician, but just as a human being, right? You're like an incredibly brilliant person, and I feel what I'm seeing. I was literally blown away by the level of your creativity. You know, everything you set out to do in terms of this idea of multidimensional art. You know, I think from that point of view, you completely mark the goal, because as I'm seeing and sitting this, I'll give you 200 for creativity, okay? And I think this is, I'm telling you with extreme sincerity. And in terms of the filmmaking, I'm blown away from what you make us in. Like, it was surprising to me, because it's obviously that you're not a filmmaker, but you're thinking with such a clarity about what you're trying to express. And then the music, you know, the way you paste it, you know, it sort of becomes like this kind of scattered soundtrack. And I know that's exactly what you set up to do. So in terms of what everything I saw and everything my ear heard in your music, you know, I can really sort of completely appreciate, and it's almost like a celebration of your creativity. And to me, that's really what is super inspiring about your presentation. Now, in terms of, you know, what is interesting, talking about what is interesting is really how you see connection where people will see nothing, or how you see things where people wouldn't see, and you sort of like presented it, and you take things, a lot of images and things from the pop culture, and then you have this way of connecting everything that was really extremely creative. Now, the thing that I'm not completely sure, so is, that's why I started with your definition of art. I don't fully feel that this is what your project is really presenting. I feel like this project it's more of a self-affirmation than some sort of like project that really helps to create some impact in the community. And I want to just point it out to you in this term that especially when I see from a musical point of view, everything you presented in itself, I really enjoyed, and I wish I could hear more of it, because you know, you basically cover a lot of different spaces artistically of different genres, and of course you did it, you know, because you're such an excellent musician. You are surrounded by excellent musicians. Everything I heard was really beautiful. Now, in terms of how I'm getting out, but what I'm feeling is there's more commitment almost in your filmmaking than in your music. You know, your filmmaking to me is very clear what you're aiming at. And sometimes what I'm missing a little bit is, you know, it's a self-affirmation of your process. And you know how much we talk about the process in global, right? It's always about the process more than result. But at the same time, the process is very much intended as something that has a direct impact, right? Here, I feel more like you're self-affirming your own process, right? It's more like, okay, I'm embracing myself, and I know this is how I think. But at the end, what I want to just to make sure you understand what the risk is, that then there's a little bit of lack of commitment. All the person in what you present artistically. So you present a concept which is very clear, but at the end, when I'm hearing all your music, I'm not sure exactly what kind of music you're putting out in the world and what is the purpose of it. And every person that you mentioned that were your mentor, from Danilo to John to Giovanni, I hear the same multidimensionalism in their music, right? Their music is not unidimensional. It's extremely creative, extremely multidimensional, right? But at the same time, the purpose and the commitment of what aesthetically they choose to use in this matter is very clear. And so this is where I feel you you need to do a little bit more soul searching, where then this process doesn't become about you, right? It's more a process to create something that actually support your idea of what the purpose of art is. And having said that, again, my add off to your creativity, to your musicality, and to your brilliancy. Okay. So that's all I wanted to say. But maybe you want to comment on what I just said.
I would just say I really appreciate the feedback. I think that it was a large process of trying to figure out what not to include, and some of the albums were more lighthearted, finding ways to create, and because I've also this project was huge. Like you said, this was very introspective. This was not like there. I believe it's imbued with my beliefs over how music can play in the world and over the things I want to do. But first and foremost, this was an introspective process to try and understand my own mind better, and try and the one thing that I really want to say is that this process that I'm exploring in the movie, or is something that emerged through my work in the Global Jazz Institute. It's not something that I already had access to beforehand. In fact, up before this last year, I had only written like 2 or 3 songs that I actually liked or would keep. I had a lot of creative blocks that prevented me from creating. So this was a journey of through this structure and the platform that you guys have created for us to was to kind of overcome those blocks and to prove to myself that I can create, and I can create on a high level and create a lot of art. I think if I had more time, I would go more into the individual albums and the musical concepts and how those musical concepts connect to the sort of egalitarian ideas and social beliefs that Global has kind of instilled in me. I do think that especially some of the music that was like really front and center to my conceptualization of it, but I definitely agree that I don't think that was necessarily on full display in the presentation of the music, and it's something that I have a lot of room to continue to grow in.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And now, Maestro Danilo, if you have any final comment or question.
Stephen, I'd like to start. I can't believe we're here now. It's been a long journey, my brother. And I just having memories how we met, and I'm having how time passes. It's amazing. It's just so quick, and we are here now. And you have chosen to take a very challenging. I'm glad that the collage homework, I think it's the first time that has inspired somebody to do a final project based on it. It's fantastic. I really love seeing this homework extended. This is an extension of that. And just I'm just gonna make just thing to keep in mind for your new journey, your new chapter. First of all, feeling grateful that you stick to this part of your life. You had a goal to finish and you did it. First of all, that takes a lot. It's easy to surrender, especially when you are fighting with formats and humanity, and you have to confine to that, and I want to praise that you didn't quit. I do. I wanna this is being a long journey. Sometimes we choose things that are very ambitious, and it takes the whole life to see it coming into fruition. So stick to it, stay on it. Do not, I think one of the best advice I can give you is when you get a job, which you will get a job in what you have been so well trained at school, just remember that your real job is that if you are free, then you must free somebody else. Just remember that, okay? If you have some power, then your job is to empower people And the more clear you are in that power that you and in that story, in that purpose, the more the impact that you have. And one more thing, you are such a beautiful trumpet player, such a musician. Please, more trumpet, more music. I love the sound that you have come up out of the what I've heard from the beginning to now. I really feel like I will revisit the video from the perspective of, do not forget that you are a magician. When you play, when you touch with that, when you sound, when the trumpet, you touch people in a way. And sometimes words are too much. You know what I mean? If you just let the story of that magic that you do, make the center of this, and make the narrative feel more subtle, you'll have a more powerful story. For me, this is just my comment, because in your sound you tell a lot. And I wanted to just finish with, when you quoted Wayne, I just want to remind you, Wayne, the personal narrative of Wayne that is so beautiful and powerful is that his gift and his genius always make all of us feel that we were behind something called collective genius. We fell a part of that story, and that takes maturity, and you're gonna get to it. I feel a part of your story. I just need a little more space in the story, But I think it'll come when you just play the trumpet a little more. That's it. And be confused, take challenges, and keep growing. Remember that in life, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go in group. This will empower and give you more strength in this story. I love the imagination. You're going to be you have a lot to entertain yourself with ideas. You just have so many things you think of, so many relationships you make. You didn't even touch upon the way that, I am a firm believer in the power of knowledge and ferocity of beauty. So your life is already an art. We all live in an artful life. It's just waiting for us to surrender to make what we know we can make. There's no limit of what we can do together as a collective entity. So proud of your work at Global. You have created an open chapter. I will think about what Marco said. It's a really on point comment, and it's a challenge, and it comes with the territory of what you have decided to embrace. It's always about that, it's a challenge, and stay strong, stay in touch, continue the journey. Namaste. 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 Don't forget that trumpet, please. Don't forget that trumpet. I just need more music in the video.
Okay, thank you, Maestro. Thank you, Steve, and congratulations. Thank you, Holly, for being with us, and Chase, and all of the wonderful alumni now. Thank you for being with us. And this concludes this year for sure with this last presentation.